Rome is burning. The year is 64 AD. Flames tear through the greatest city on earth, consuming entire neighborhoods in a single breathless night. 1 million people scream into the darkness. And somewhere above it all, on his palace terrace, stands a man history will never forgive. His name is Nero. And for 2,000 years we have called him a monster. But what if we are wrong? He came into the world on the 15th of December 37 AD, in the port city of Antium, modern-day Anzio on the Italian coast. His full name at birth, Lucius Domitius Ahenobarbus. His father, Gnaeus Domitius, was described by ancient sources as cruel and vicious. His mother, Agrippina the Younger, was brilliant, ruthless, and consumed by ambition. From the very first breath, destiny was being engineered around this child. Agrippina murdered, manipulated, and maneuvered her way through the imperial court for one purpose alone: to seat her son on the throne of the world. She succeeded. In 54 AD, when the Emperor Claudius died, almost certainly poisoned, Nero, just 16 years old, became ruler of an empire stretching from Scotland to Syria, from the Rhine to the Sahara. Approximately 70 million people now answered to a teenager. What an artist dies in me. Forget the monster for a moment. Step into the golden halls of the Domus Aurea, the Golden House, Nero's legendary palace complex that sprawled across 100 to 300 acres of prime Roman real estate. Walk the frescoed corridors, smell the perfume atomized through golden ceiling panels. Hear the sound of the kithara, a 7-stringed lyre, being played with genuine skill by the emperor himself. This is the Nero the ancient sources struggled to reconcile with their condemnation, a man who genuinely loved art, music, and poetry. Nero studied singing under the renowned Greek musician Terpnus. He competed in public games, the Neronia. He personally organized in 60 AD. He performed on stage before thousands, reciting verse and playing instruments. To Roman aristocratic sensibility, this was deeply, profoundly humiliating. Emperors did not perform. Slaves performed. The Senate was horrified. But the crowds? The crowds adored him. Ancient sources confirm that Nero planted loyal supporters in audiences. The Augustiani, 5,000 strong, trained to applaud in specific rhythmic patterns. Yet beyond the propaganda, the genuine love of ordinary Romans for their performing emperor was widely documented. Coins minted throughout his reign, many still surviving in museum collections today, show a ruler confident in his identity. The full face, the strong neck, the characteristic curling hair pressed close to his brow. And yet, the darkness was real. Nero ordered the murder of his own mother. Agrippina, the woman who had killed for him, schemed for him, breathed ambition into his very existence, was stabbed to death in her villa at Baiae in 59 AD, on her son's direct command. He had already tried to sink her in a specially constructed collapsible boat. She swam to shore. He sent assassins instead. Ancient historian Tacitus, writing in the early 2nd century AD, records the scene with devastating restraint. When the soldiers arrived at her villa, Agrippina is said to have bared her abdomen and commanded them, "Strike here, the womb that bore Nero." Whether the words are exactly true matters less than the image they have burned into history for 2 millennia. This was not the end of the blood. His first wife, Claudia Octavia, was divorced, exiled, and executed in 62 AD. His second wife, Poppaea Sabina, intelligent, beautiful, and politically formidable, died in 65 AD under circumstances Suetonius claimed were a violent kick from Nero during her pregnancy, though some modern historians believe this was propaganda. His one-time advisor, and the greatest mind of his era, Seneca the Younger, was ordered to take his own life in 65 AD, implicated in a failed assassination conspiracy. The Pisonian conspiracy had nearly ended Nero's reign. It shook him profoundly. What followed was paranoia, show trials, and a purge that decimated Rome's intellectual class. The memory of Nero will be cherished and longed for by the common people. The 18th of July, 64 AD. It begins in a row of shops near the Circus Maximus, most likely in a merchant district selling highly flammable goods, oil, fabrics, timber. Rome is a tinderbox. The city is dense, overcrowded, its narrow streets packed with multi-story wooden insular housing, perhaps 1 million people, in an area of approximately 285 square kilometers. The fire burns for 6 days and 7 nights. Then, after a brief pause, it ignites again. When the smoke finally clears, 3 of Rome's 14 administrative regions are completely destroyed. 7 more are severely damaged. 200,000 people are left homeless. Nero, the historical record shows, was not in Rome when the fire began. He was at his villa in Antium, 56 kilometers away. According to Tacitus, he rushed back to the city and personally organized relief efforts, opening public buildings, importing food, lowering grain prices, supervising the fire lines. Yet the story that stuck, that Nero fiddled while Rome burned, was born almost instantly. The fiddle is, of course, an anachronism. The instrument didn't exist for another 500 years. The original Roman accusation was that he played the cithara and sang of Troy's destruction as the flames rose. Suetonius wrote it. Tacitus expressed doubt. Cassius Dio repeated it. What we know for certain, Nero used the cleared land to build the Domus Aurea. That fact alone, whatever the truth of his actions during the fire, condemned him in the court of public opinion forever. For 2,000 years, Nero's reputation has swung dramatically between condemnation and cautious rehabilitation. Ancient sources painted him as pure monster. Medieval scholarship agreed, but from the 20th century onwards, academic opinion has grown measurably more complex, acknowledging propaganda, senatorial bias, and the gap between what was written and what was true. Someone had to pay for the fire. Nero chose a small, politically defenseless religious sect, with no patrons in the Senate, and no legions at their command. The Christians of Rome. Tacitus, no admirer of Nero, but also no particular friend of Christianity, writes with striking ambiguity in his annals. He confirms that Christians were arrested, tried, and executed. He describes their deaths in terms that make even a Roman historian uneasy: dressed in animal skins, torn apart by dogs, crucified, set ablaze as living torches to light Nero's night gardens. He then adds, crucially, that the public, though approving of the punishment for their hatred of the human race, began to feel sympathy for the victims. Whether these people actually started the fire is, in Tacitus's own words, unclear. But Nero needed a scapegoat. He needed it fast. The anti-Christian persecution of 64 AD was, in all likelihood, one of history's first large-scale state-sponsored religious persecutions. It would echo through centuries of Christian memory. In the Book of Revelation, the number 666, the number of the beast, has been widely interpreted by modern biblical scholars as a coded reference to Nero himself, using a Hebrew numerological system called gematria. The beast that burns, the emperor encoded in prophecy. Who was the real Nero? His physical appearance is better documented than almost any other ancient ruler. Multiple marble portrait busts survive in the Capitoline museums in Rome, the British Museum in London, the Louvre in Paris. They show a consistent face, full and fleshy, with a rounded jaw and heavy neck, narrow eyes framed by the characteristic Julio-Claudian brow, and that distinctive tight curl of hair across his forehead. He was of medium height, his body soft from the luxury of court life. According to Suetonius, he had weak, nearsighted eyes, and rarely met another person's gaze directly. He smelled of the perfume he had pumped through the Domus Aurea's ceiling vents. He feared death obsessively, and rarely slept without the room lit. Suetonius describes a man riddled with physical insecurities, who nonetheless burned with a desperate desire to be seen, admired, loved. Modern psychologists who have studied the ancient sources, scholars like Dr. Shadi Barch at the University of Chicago, have explored the possibility of a personality driven by deep narcissistic need, wedded to enormous inherited power. A lethal combination in any era. Yet we must remember, almost every word written about Nero was written by his enemies. The Senate class he alienated, the historians who served the emperors who replaced him, the Christians whose martyrs he created. The sources are not neutral, they never were. He set no value on any other art but music, and any man who was not musical he described as drunk, or mad, or a fool. By 68 AD, the empire was fracturing. The governor of the province of Gallia Lugdunensis, modern-day France, Julius Vindex, launched a revolt. He was defeated, but the tremor had started. Then Galba, governor of Hispania Tarraconensis, declared himself emperor. The legions of Gaul and Spain turned. The Praetorian Guard, the very bodyguard sworn to protect Nero, switched sides, bribed with Galba's promise of gold. The Senate formally declared Nero a public enemy, an act without precedent in Roman history. Nero fled Rome in disguise, on horseback, with only 4 loyal freedmen remaining at his side. He took refuge in the suburban villa of his freedman Phaon, just 4 miles outside the city walls. The sound of approaching hoofbeats grew closer through the night. He asked his companions to dig his grave before him. They did. He touched the freshly turned earth and wept. His final hours are recorded in vivid detail by Suetonius. He kept picking up a dagger and putting it down, unable to strike. It took the words of his secretary Epaphroditos, guiding his hand, to end it. Nero died on the 9th of June, 68 AD, aged 30 years, 7 months, and 28 days. Last of the Julio-Claudian dynasty. First emperor to die an enemy of the Roman state. When news of his death spread east, 3 separate impostors claiming to be Nero miraculously survived arose in the following decades. The people who loved him refused to believe he was gone.